I was listening to the conversation from some of you who obviously happen to be leaders in the NBFC industry. And I've decided to make some changes to the presentation because frankly what we are putting in over here is about identity and access management, which is a technology. What we are talking here is much broader issues in terms of the business issues and the environment that is impacting NBFCs today. We had a great presentation on the technology part, and I was very impressed with the approach that he's taking on identifying the kind of issues that are there. Identity management has been, can we just, has been there for quite some time. In fact, we were founded in the year 2000 out of India. We were the only companies, we were the only company from India even today which is into identity and access management. We did not see much of a market in India at that point in time, and we abdicated India in favor of US. We worked there for 12 years, constantly did more than 500 implementations of identity management, and a good number of them are with financial sector, including some very, very large banks like the HSBC in Americas and so on. In the last 1 year, we see something completely changing in India. And this is our fourth attempt in coming back to India and trying to do something in our own country. We suddenly find in the financial sector a huge set of changes that, and I think it's mainly, I thought that it was coming morely from regulations, and RBI becoming very strict in terms of driving regulations, and it's a reaction to that people are trying to implement identity and access management and other cybersecurity and other things and governance and so on. But coming here in the last 45 minutes, I have come to the conclusion it is not just so. We in this country, we are always used to deliver and derive our own solutions, which are always very different from whatever the rest of the world is doing. While being in the mainstream of the world, we have our own way of coming out with very original solutions. And that's what I'm beginning to see here as I come. I'm beginning to spend almost 4 to 5 months in India now. And I find, and that is kind of the enthusiasm that I have in seeing the way the markets are moving in India for technology. We talked about the environment. We also talked in the next presentation about things like what is really driving the NBFCs. I really like calling NBFC as NBFTC. I fully agree. Technology today is the largest driver for business, and especially in the financial segment, especially in India, where we are talking about far-flung areas, where we are talking about people who are your customers. They come from very remote areas. We don't have the kind of communication means that are available in places like US. There's a stark difference in terms of the kind of customer profile that we have here and let's say in the world like US. And yet, the way we have gone and brought technologies, and I have been talking to lots of CIOs in the country. Yesterday I had 2 more meetings, and I'm beginning to see how much of usage of technology in a very simple and very innovative way is being brought about in India. If I look at mobile devices, for example, it's becoming a complete enabler to your business. But along with that comes a different kind of risk also, which is what I see you may or may not be fully aware of at this point in time. The 3 or 4 things that I see for NBFCs, and for that matter, most of the other financial institutions, are processes, very, very important. Technology as an enabler, and I'm talking about things like, we just heard things like bots, robotics process automation. We are talking about IoT devices. These are really proliferating the environment all the time in your institutions. But there is, and that is bringing in technology of a different kind. Governance, we talked about, and that's extremely important. And finally, regulations. We can see RBI breathing down literally the neck of small banks, mid-sized banks, We are working with many of them in a very, very indigenous kind of technology versions that we have brought out for India now, which we think work very well. And these are not the kind of American solutions which begin at $500,000 upwards and 2 years of hard toil implementation before you can get any benefit out of it. That model doesn't work in our country. We're impatient about things. We want it economical, and we want the highest ROI that is possible in the industry anywhere in the world. And we are trying to do that. So with that in the background, I'll just take a few minutes on a few facts, and this is only one aspect. By the way, identity and access management is one technology which is no more in the developed world. It's not a technology anymore that is considered only in the cybersecurity space. It's a technology which is being considered as a business, as an infrastructure, basic infrastructure enabler. Because regardless of what you do in an organization, there are two things which are important. Identities. So every user has an identity. Every device has an identity. An IoT device has an identity, for example, and those devices have to access or either have to be accessed or they have to access something. Like a human identity has to access something. And that could be information, that could be systems, that could be machines, that could be anything. That could be the IoT devices and so on and so forth. So you need to create and manage the identities, and you need to also manage accesses to various devices and your own information systems, whether it happens to be your core application or it happens to be your workgroup application. No matter what it is, you have to manage it. You have to give due authorization to who manages what. You need to have an understanding of who is accessing what, who has given authorization for accessing that. What is he doing with that information, which is the authorization given to him? Does he really need that access? You have to continue to look at, because roles change, people get transferred, people get promoted, people change roles, people take temporary assignments in addition to their full-blown roles that they have in the organizations. But the accesses don't change many a times. It's impossible to manage all the accesses on real-time basis unless you have certain technology in place. So technologies like identity and access management are enablers to all the four things, which is processes, the management of and access to the technology itself, governance, and very, very big on the agenda is regulations, which are becoming more strict. And I'm happy to see, finally I can see all the documents, and I'll just show you quickly one or two portions of that, how that has become extremely important. So a few facts, and I'll go very, I don't want to really take you into too much of Ilantus or any identity and access management presentation. We are here, we have a booth here, and we'll be happy, our consultants would be happy to meet up with you and talk about its context and all. But I just want to give you a very high-level understanding of what it is all about. So here are some of the latest that I just picked up yesterday night. The frauds are going up. And mind it, this is just the beginning. We have seen it happening in other parts of the world. We are not cognizant of the fact as to where we are heading on this aspect. This is a very small number of incidents that have been actually recorded. Unfortunately, more than 80% of the security incidents are not reported for the fear of what it does to your reputation. This is very relevant to India, the way we are taking on mobile technologies, the way we are embracing it in every possible organization, especially B2C kind of organizations where you've got large number of consumers, is remarkable. But the security aspect of it is becoming a major issue. The same thing is true for bots. I'm seeing in lots of banks, I've been talking and I've been seeing as to what we are doing with bots, and there's a rapid deployment of bots that's happening. But it's recognized world over that the bots, people who build the bots, care the least about the security of the bots. And that has to be brought from outside, otherwise, before you know, the access to the bots is going to be possible it is possible if you don't put very stringent technologies to manage the access to the bots. This is worldwide. We see this. I work with banks in the US very, very closely. We are beginning to work with banks in Europe as well, because now we are fully compliant with all the European regulations in the last 1 year. And we find reputational damage is the single biggest threat that is there for all of us. In a way, we have been quite a few months, we have been doing detailed research on what RBI has come out with, and that is one of the good antidotes that is there to the risks that is so significantly there now. I'll just quote a few things from this. Is one of the key documents on the NBFCs from RBI, essentially. And I'll just quote a few portions from that, and this is only sample. There's a lot of areas in which identity and access management can play a role. So, role-based access control. RBI says that's mandatory. Whether you do it manually or you do it through a system, you have to do it. And there's no way you can do it in a manual basis. When you go for your audits and all that, you will find, even internal audits, that you are breaching a lot of these, because it's not possible to do it online management of role-based access control. The delegation of authority, extremely important. That leads us into what we call access requests. So somebody asks for an access, what is the process that you put in place to give him that access or deny the access or manage that access over a period of time? Consequent to the access that you give him, how do you really measure his risk level, and therefore automatically put together certain technology which can take care of the risk that has increased of that individual, or that an application or an entitlement inside an application or a role. All that just cannot be done manually. Audits, anything to be audited, all the information to be available of what has been done. It's extremely important to manage that part. Impossible to do these things manually. Maker checker, we all know about. And again, when it comes to accesses, when it comes to some of the vital things related to identity and accesses, it's important to have that concept very well implemented, which is only possible through a technology like the identity and access management. Risk assessment is exceedingly important. I'm happy to tell you that we do this all the time for NBFCs. These are the recommendations RBI gives for small NBFCs, very, very relevant, less than 500 crores. There are a lot of things, and I again don't want to get into too much of detail, but these are all things that we have threadbare, we have researched on it, and we can share all this. We have decided to take a role. Identity and access management is not a business for us, it's a passion for us. And people like me who were original founders way back in 2000, we are recognized all over the world for what we are doing, but we haven't really contributed much to India so far. Now we are very excited about doing that, and we want to play a very major role in this particular area in India. We already are working with 4 banks. Two of them are very small banks, a medium-sized bank, and one of the largest banks in the industry in India. We are beginning to talk to and work with some of the NBFCs. And what we have done is, I'll just skip some slides. By the way, we are very well recognized world over. The largest identity and access management specialist analyst in the world is KuppingerCole. And our latest product, this is from Gartner. You might have heard of Gartner, which is, again, we have a lot of accolades from Gartner. And KuppingerCole recently published its results, and a product of ours which has been there in the market, it's a 3rd generation product, just for 1 year, is already made it to the Magic Quadrant equivalent of KuppingerCole. We are leaders in innovation and many other areas, in the product side and so on. Ours is the only product in the industry, in the world, which is all the identity and access management technologies combined into one single code base. Nothing like that is available anywhere. And that is enormous when we talk about something like India, where we don't want to complicate things too much. We don't want to spend too much. We want very high ROI. and yet we want something to be exceedingly simple. And that's exactly what we have in this space. These are some of our partners worldwide. They'll be happy to work with you, some of them in India. We have a very, very impressive customer footprint in the world, including APG in Europe is the largest pension fund, second largest pension fund in the world. A lot of financial customers in India. We are beginning to do a lot of work with many organizations in the NBFC as well as the banking sector. Well, just wanted to sensitize you to whatever you're trying to achieve from a business point of view, and I completely understand and appreciate the point that was made by the previous speaker that technology is the enabler, more so in case of NBFCs, not only banks. And that being so, technologies like what we have could be of great relevance to making IT the enabler, true enabler for your organization, while managing the risk as well. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate your time.